Hey, what's up, folks? Welcome back to On Texas Football, and welcome back to another edition of The Winning Drive. I'm lifetime Longhorn Rod Davis. Pleased to be joined by my man, no need for an introduction, Jeff Howe, the man who's now the latest member of the On Texas Football family. I'm pleased to call him a friend, but also a co-worker now. But also pleased to be joined by the coach, former high school football coach at Vernon, Capel, Brownwood, Belton, Rotan. Also played college football at Abilene Christian, coached there as well. And was on the staff at the University of Texas for multiple head football coaches. Now you can catch his work at ShipleyRanches.com these days. It's Coach Bob Shipley. What's going on, Coach? How you doing?
Hey, doing great. How you guys doing?
Doing good, Coach. Doing good, man. Got to talk some football. We do have some actual football to talk about. You do have the Senior Bowl. We'll get to that. The Longhorns, who are, or at least we thought were participating in the Senior Bowl. We'll discuss that coming up, and which ones can improve their draft stock the most. Speaking of draft stock, you guys know I'm a huge mock draft slut, so I will bring up any mock draft. Pro Football Focus has one. Daniel Jeremiah had one a couple of days ago. I don't know if we got to Daniel Jeremiah's latest mock draft. We'll get to that too coming up a little bit later on in the show and talk about where they have the Longhorns in those latest mock drafts. We're also going to get to Xavier Worthy and the couple of Longhorns, Charles Omenihu, Moro Ojimo, who will be playing in the Super Bowl. Now we do have the Super Bowl matchup set, a rematch between the Kansas City Chiefs and the Philadelphia Eagles. So we'll talk about a little bit of that too. And man, Coach has got a nice factoid, nice stat to share with you guys, a Super Bowl related stat for the Longhorn fandom out there. So we'll get to that. But of course, you guys know how it works. You guys drive the show whichever way you want to drive it, whichever direction. That's the way we're going. Super chats jump to the front of the line. You can interrupt the show at any time. Also, any questions you have, any comments you guys have, we'll try to address as many of them as we can before we get off the air today. All right, let's start, gentlemen, though, and thank you guys for joining us. We appreciate it. Let's start with Xavier Worthy. We'll start with Xavier Worthy and the Super Bowl. So that was the latest news, and then we'll get to the Senior Bowl after that. But Xavier Worthy, with a great performance last night in the AFC title game, gentlemen. Over 100 yards total from scrimmage, had 6 receptions, also had a touchdown in that matchup. I don't know if you guys got a chance to watch it or not, but give me your thoughts about Xavier Worthy's performance, and you can talk a little bit about the Chiefs if you want to. But the Super Bowl will have 3 Longhorns participating along with Xavier Worthy. You'll also get Moro Ojimo, and you'll also get Charles Omenihu participating in the Super Bowl. Coach, what are your thoughts about it?
Well, I thought he had a great game. I thought he played well. I thought great representation from X and others. 8 catches, 101 yards, and a touchdown. And the most interesting thing is he's our best shot. X is our best shot because apparently a Texas player a Longhorn has never scored a touchdown in the Super Bowl. And so X can make history in more ways than one if he can pull off a touchdown. And what a great way to cap off a rookie season. I mean, he's had a great rookie season, and it only helps the more headlines he gets, the more notoriety he gets, the more followers he gets, the more fans University of Texas has.
Man, that's a great stat. I can't even believe that, Jeff. But now that I'm trying to think about it and ponder it, I can't even think of a Longhorn who would have been closest to scoring a touchdown in the Super Bowl. You got to get there, number one, and you got to be playing a skill position that's likely to score a touchdown, be a weapon. It ain't necessarily something that comes along, I don't know, every few years or so. I can't think of the last Longhorn who might have been in a position to do that.
My first thought was my mind just went blank. Jamal Charles.
They never got there though.
But the Chiefs weren't the Chiefs. The Chiefs
weren't
that's
why I tell you
the new Chiefs back then.
A lot of great players, but you're like, well, how many of those great players have been on teams good enough to get to the Super Bowl?
Yeah,
been a weapon on offense in the Super Bowl.
Yeah, my initial thoughts, Rod, were Fozzie got close with Carolina because he was their leading rusher in that game. Several years ago now when they played Denver in the Super Bowl, Peyton Manning's last Super Bowl. The other guys, and I had to look at it. I could have sworn in the 2 Super Bowls he played in that Terry Orr scored for Washington because he was on 2 Super Bowl winning teams with Joe Gibbs Redskins, but Terry Orr didn't score in those Super Bowls.
Oh,
and
wow.
We forget Priest Holmes was on the Super Bowl 35 team with the Ravens, but he was RB2 with Jamal Lewis.
Yep.
Those are the guys that I thought might have gotten close, but nope, didn't happen.
That's a hell of a stat. Yeah, no, it is. It ain't easy to do. It is tough to do. I think Xavier Worthy will score a touchdown. I think he will. I think he'll end up scoring a touchdown. They have certain plays they like for him. I've watched a lot of the Kansas City Chiefs this season. They got a lot of plays they like specifically for him. And the truth is, they have now basically they've resigned themselves to the fact that they don't want him to be a deep threat right now because it didn't work. Early on in the season, they kept chunking it to him deep, and it just didn't. They didn't have the connection. Whatever it was, they need more time to work on their chemistry, their rhythm in the passing game. So they decided to use them basically a lot of the times as kind of an extension of the run game. He's taking some end and arounds, little quick screens, a lot of things that Sark came back and did with him. They love him, coach, on the pick routes, like the mesh concepts underneath. He had a big reception on that last night too. They now Andy Reid has figured out how to use Xavier Worthy for the time being. I think he will expand his skill set as he becomes an NFL veteran, and you will add the vertical element to the game. But with all that world-class speed, they're using it more on yak opportunities than they are on using it on deep threats down the field, which is what a lot of people thought would be the case. Yeah. Still got to be sweet, though, against a team that passed you up, the Buffalo Bills, that passed on you in the draft to come back and then be able to, put a whipping on them and get 100+ yards from scrimmage. That's got to feel good for a man, Xavier Worthy. So congrats to him. Congrats to all those guys, Charles Omenihu, Mora Ojimo as well, who will be participating in the Super Bowl. We won't ask you for a Super Bowl pick already, but, I mean, I can tell you right now I'm picking the Chiefs. It's going to be 3 in a row. They're going to be the first team to three-peat. And I know my man Matthew does not like me making that pick. Ask Xavier Worthy if he had any extra motivation facing the Bills tonight. Quote, they skipped on him. That's their loss. As my man Matthew pulls that up.
I wonder who they picked instead. Wonder what that pick actually was.
It was it the wide receiver? Didn't they pick another wide receiver in the first round?
I don't know if they.
Oh, they skip out of the first round altogether.
I think they skipped out of the first round.
They skipped out of the first round altogether.
Coleman. Yeah.
I think they decided. Yeah, they didn't want to draft a receiver in the first round. That I believe that was the case. And then the next pick was Coleman. Coleman. They traded down for Keon Coleman. Yeah.
I won't give you a prediction, Rod, but the Chiefs have more Longhorns. They outnumber Philly 2-1, so I'm going with the Chiefs.
Longhorn mojo. Good stuff there, Jeff. There you go.
And for the first touchdown, because Coach Shipley gave us that great factoid, I'm gonna go Charles Omenihu scoop and score for the first
baby.
touchdown.
Wow.
Yeah.
Whoa.
How about
That's
that?
a hell of a prediction right there.
That would be so awesome.
That would be
That
sweet.
doesn't say much for the history of our skilled receivers. Skilled positions in the Super Bowl, but that's so. What was Coleman? Keon Coleman, I think.
They traded down for
was who they took. Yeah,
they traded down for Keon Coleman. Yeah, no, congrats to X-Man. Congrats to all those guys. Otex, I hope you all enjoyed Jeff Otex about. He's gone after that. Yeah, Matthew is a Philly fan.
I think Matthew might be behind that little boat.
Philly's impressed. This is what Philly's got a chance to do. Something really unique. And we're not going to talk a lot of NFL, but think about they could potentially not basically take down, but they could essentially beat 2 dynasties in the midst of their run, which is hard to do. Right? And you can keep Kansas City from three-peating, which is nobody wants to see them three-peat. None of us want to see this, but it just looks like that dude's inevitable because he's just the most clutch player we've seen since Tom Brady. But they would have taken down in 2 different forms too, by the way, different head coach, different quarterbacks, beating Tom Brady and the Patriots, and then beating Kansas City Chiefs and Patrick Mahomes. That says a lot about an organization with different quarterbacks and different head coaches. It says a lot about Howard Roseman, who I think is probably the second best GM in the league behind Brett Veach, GM of the Kansas City Chiefs.
Yeah. I'll say this though, Rod. As a Cowboys fan, I can't root for Philly at my core. And Jalen Hurts is a Sooner. He finished his career at OU, so that's double why I can't root for Philly.
That is fair, actually. I didn't even see, I forgot all about that. I didn't even go to that affiliation. Great point, Jeff. See, that's why Jeff's so valuable here. Points out the insight like that. I forget all about it. All right, let's get back to some Longhorn football discussion here. I want to talk about the Senior Bowl. I want to talk about what guys are going to increase their draft stock the most in the Senior Bowl. And now I'm wondering, how many of Texas guys are going to be participating in the Senior Bowl. It was initially, I believe, the accepted invites guys were Alfred Collins, Vernon Broughton, Barron Sorrell, Gunnar Helm, and Andrew Makuba. Right, mm-hmm. Those were the 5 accepted invites. But I believe recently on the latest roster, and Jeff, I believe you actually have some insight. Is only Barron Sorrell is weighed in and listed on the roster.
Yeah, he was the only one that, the Senior Bowl was running down heights and weights today. He was the only one of those 5 Texas guys that had a verified height and weight. So I don't know if the other 4 went to Mobile and just aren't participating, or because, you do interviews and meet with teams and all that stuff at the Senior Bowl. So we'll figure, they'll figure that out. But yeah, it's interesting. I don't, Coach Shipley, we were talking about it before we jumped on. I was talking to Jim Nagy during SEC Media Day, and he said that's one problem the Senior Bowl is running into is, and I'm not saying this is what happened, but that guys will accept the invite and then their agents will tell them, or somebody's in their ear telling them, hey, don't go to Mobile, save yourself for the combine or your pro day or whatever. Look, there's going to be somebody that's not on the radar is going to end up being. Mm-hmm. That's just the way it's going to work out. So it happens all the time. Somebody elevates their stock in the Senior Bowl. The Senior Bowl, to me, Coach and Rod, it's one of those things that I don't know that it can really hurt you, but I think it can only help you. At the very least, you're there competing. And I think in the case of the Texas guys, yeah, you play late into the season. I think that's also something to consider. But to me, just how I view football, I would rather just see the guys, hey, it doesn't matter if you win every rep, lose every rep, whatever. I just want to see you there competing.
Yep, and I think you're right about that. I think that's what a lot of the the scouts and the coaches and a lot of the front office guys who are there. That's why they love they brag about the accepted invites. They guys, and obviously the more a guy is, I would say the higher a guy's draft stock is going in, kind of the more respect you get from the coaches and the scouts coming in, that you would actually risk your draft stock coming in. Because I'm with you. I don't know if I've seen guys drop a ton in draft stock going to the Senior Bowl. I've seen a lot of guys. Quinyon Mitchell is a guy that kind of comes to mind.
Yeah,
just last year, I mean, his draft stock just soared after going there because he just showed him that, man, he checked all the boxes at the Senior Bowl. Like you said, you get a chance to interview and you get a chance to go out there and compete against other guys who are going to be playing in the league. The problem with a lot of your film is it ain't against NFL guys.
Right.
Like it's just not against NFL guys. And sometimes it's the scheme that a player's in. That limits a player. It's like, I want to see this guy in this scheme. I bet he's better in this scheme. So when they get you in those practices, Coach, they get a chance to put you in every situation they want to put you in, see exactly what your fit may be and what you're compatible with as a player, what schemes you're compatible with, and you're going up against other NFL caliber players. So I'm with you. I mean, I turned down an invite to play one of those bowls too. When I was a player, because I had like it was like a little calf issue going on. I didn't want to go and compete and hurt myself and then re-injure myself or something like that. So I wanted to stay fresh for the combine. So if you got any type of ailment, you got any injury, no matter how minor it is, you don't want to. That's a lot of that is, I think the guys erring on the side of caution. They don't want to compete in the Senior Bowl because they don't want to injure themselves going to the combine, and you will lose. Your draft stock will drop if you don't compete in the combine or you don't get to do some of the drills on pro day or things of that nature. So, yeah, I can see if some of the guys decided that maybe, they had some injuries that have been, they played late into the season, obviously playing 16 games, and maybe they decided, with these bumps and bruises, I'm going to pass on the Senior Bowl, get fresh, start training already for the combine and for some of the pro day exercises.
Yeah, that's a thing that happened. In fact, Jordan and Colt McCoy both, when they came out, neither one of them played in the Senior Bowl. Jordan had a nagging shoulder injury, and so he didn't participate. I can't remember what Colt's deal was, but I felt like it hurt. They were both drafted in the third round. In fact, they were back-to-back picks, ironically. But I think it hurt. I think it hurt them not being there. In fact, when Jordan went to the combine, one of the questions that they grilled him on was, about not being a competitor, and he actually won, I think, 2 years in a row, like whatever Mad Dog, what award did he give? Like a weight room award or rehab award, or I think it was just off season awarded.
Yeah, it was like off season. Yeah,
I think Jordan won it like twice, because he worked so hard in there with Mad Dog and those guys. But anyway, I think that may have been some of the talk that he didn't want to compete or whatever against some of those people in the Senior Bowl, which couldn't have been further from the truth. But I think it certainly hurt his draft stock.
Yeah, the only guy that went and competed, Rod, the only Texas guy I can remember, and he's actually told us this story. It might have been on one of our Longhorn Blitz episodes, but B.J. Johnson, when he went to the Senior Bowl, ended up having, his foot was bothering him and just kept bothering him, and it ends out he has a stress fracture, which took him kind of from a mid to late round guy to completely out of the draft. So that's when sometimes an injury is different. Sometimes discretion is the better part of valor. Like sometimes, hey, if you got an injury, just go get that thing healed and deal with the questions later. But you think of the Texas guys over the years, like Puna Ford helped himself. He didn't get drafted, but he got himself on the radar at the Senior Bowl.
Yeah.
Quandre Diggs had a great Senior Bowl. There's been plenty of guys, Christian Jones last year, but plenty of guys over the years that from Texas that have gone to the Senior Bowl and elevated their stock. So yeah, it's different when you're a guy like Byron Murphy or Tavondre Sweat last year, and you're in that first round mix. Murphy was solidly in it, as it turns out, and then Tavondre was kind of on the border. It's different than that. To me, if you're Alfred Collins, Gunnar Helm, really all of those guys, I think all those guys could have improved their stock. But again, the other thing we got to consider too, Rod, with some of these teams is now with this elongated college football season because of the playoff, the expanded playoff, guys are going to be playing later. Hey, it might have taken you a month to heal up from something, and that month would have had you ready to go to Mobile. Now it's just going to bleed into the Senior Bowl.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. I totally agree with you about that. And, right now, looking at guys like Alfred Collins and, Vernon Broughton, Alfred Collins getting a lot of buzz before the combine. I see guys like Matt Miller point out that he believes Alfred Collins is going to be a fast riser in the pre-draft process. I can see that too. The guy's measurables are just freakish. And it's a loaded D tackle class as well. It's a really, really deep D tackle class. Even some of the guys that were actually listed to be at the Senior Bowl were some of the better D tackles in the country. The top guys, obviously, those two Michigan guys, Kenneth Grant, Mason Graham. Mason Graham considered one of the top D tackles, if not the top D tackle in the draft. But guys like Walter Nolan, Deion Walker, Shamora Turner, Omar Norman Lott, I believe, were accepted an invite to the Senior Bowl. They were going to get a chance to compete alongside a lot of the best interior D linemen in the country. So we'll see. But Alfred Collins, I know a lot of folks expect him potentially to be a round 2 pick. Like he could be a guy that can work himself into being in the second round if he tests really well and if he shows up really well in the pre-draft process. I think Gunnar Helm was a guy that solidly had himself as a top 5 tight end potentially coming out in the draft. And I'm not sure if he could have improved that because the guys ahead of him, Tyler Warren and Colston Loveland, I believe the Michigan tight end, even though he outperformed him in that matchup versus Michigan. I don't know if you're going to surpass those guys, but from what I've researched so far, Gunnar Helm, was a guy that's considered a top 5 tight end. I'm not sure where they put him in the draft. It's not a premium position, and the tight end position for some teams is an indulgence that they only really want to prioritize in the middle rounds of the draft, and they don't do it early in the draft. So Makuba's another guy that I thought had a really good shot here to really catapult his draft stock into maybe being a top 5 safety in this draft potentially. I mean, that's crazy to say that, but Xavier Watts is probably listed as a higher draft prospect. Malachi Starks from Georgia, of course, another one of those guys. Kevin Winston out of Penn State's another really good safety. But Other than that, there are not a lot of safeties, also not a premium position, that are cemented as being, top 5 guys. And I think Makuba's a guy that is hovering around, potentially being one of the top safeties coming down the draft too. So him not being there, if he's not there too, I potentially that could, stall his draft stock, because he's a guy that I think needs to show he can cover. I think the film shows he's physical enough, and he'll take your head off if he needs to. I want people to show to see he can cover as well. You ask Dabo Swinney, he says he can play any position in the secondary. I think if teams see he can cover, along with having that physicality because of his small frame, that may be a question. But he's a guy that I think NFL teams would fall in love with too. So a little disappointed not to see some of those guys competing at the Senior Bowl, but I can't wait to see what they do throughout the pre-draft process to increase their draft stock.
Barrett Sorrell is the kind of guy that the Senior Bowl was made for. When you look at, I just love him as a player because he's a guy that just got better. Bobby and I talked about this today. He just got better every year he was in Texas and was just so consistent. Kind of the opposite of what you got from Alfred Collins. Alfred would give you the splash plays. You're just saying, hey, man, can he just put that together and show some consistency? With Sorrell, he might not have given you the splash plays, but you know exactly where he's going to be. And Coach, those are the guys you win football games with. The guy that, hey, I put him out there. I can have him out there for 60, 70 snaps, and I don't have to worry about it. But now he'll get to showcase and I think it was just he was on a team with some really good pass rushers with Ethan Burke and Trey Moore and Colin Simmons. Now I think if he can go there and win some one-on-ones and show he can bend the corner and convert speed to power and the things that you look for NFL edge guys to do, yeah, he can definitely get himself into that, maybe that early day 3 kind of mix, or that fourth, early 5th round where he's coming off the board. But I just loved him so much in this program, Coach, because like I said, he was just so consistent. You knew what you were going to get out of him every game.
Yeah, he's a high character guy. It was a joy recruiting him and meeting his family. And, you pull for guys like that are just genuinely good people. And Vernon Broughton's the same way. I mean, those two guys are they're great human beings. You covered them, Jeff. You know what I'm talking about. And that's the thing that I am most proud of with those guys, is that they're going to represent us well wherever they land.
Yep. No, I agree with you on that too. And speaking of, Vernon Broughton, maybe Matthew can pull up this graphic for us from Pro Football Focus. They had a graphic with the highest graded defensive tackles from the 2024 season. Vernon Broughton and Alfred Collins among these guys. I think they were among the top 10 highest graded D tackles in either the Power 4 or in all of the FBS. I think it was Power 4, if I'm not mistaken. Thank you, Matthew. Appreciate that. Yes, Power 4. So you got they're ranked here basically based on their grade. They have them graded as the 4th and 5th highest graded D tackles from the 23-24 season. And the reason I want to bring this up is you see Mason Graham, obviously, rated as the highest. And probably one of his worst games is probably the game against Texas, ironically enough. But I also went and looked at last year, because I'm assuming last year with T'Vondre Sweat, Byron Murphy and T'Vondre Sweat were among the top highest graded D tackles by Pro Football Focus. And I was right that they also, so for the last, here you go. Thank you, Matthew, for 2023 season in the Power 5, you got T'Vondre Sweat and Byron Murphy. And then I went and I was like, man, because I thought Ojimo and Keldre Coburn also graded pretty high. I couldn't find Coburn's, but I found more Ojimo in a graphic from Pro Football Focus from the 2022 season, showing that he graded out and had a Pro Football Focus grade of top 5. So in the last 3 years, based on Pro Football Focus grades, thank you, Matthew, you've had, in each of the last 3 years, you had at least one. And in 2 of the last 3 years, you've had 2 D tackles ranked in the top 5 highest graded D tackles in the power conferences. And you had 2 drafted last year, 2 drafted the year before that. Mm-hmm. If you have 2 drafted this year, we all believe Alfred Collins and Vernon Broughton will be drafted, right? That'll make 2 again. That's a pipeline, gentlemen. That is officially, you got yourself a pipeline. You got yourself a pipeline from that position to the league. No doubt. That's impressive.
Yeah. You're gonna have to fill in the gaps in that pipeline though, Rod, for 2025, because
that's true.
You kind of got this. It's a weird year where you're going to be talented interior D line, but you're either going to be really young and inexperienced or really old with your portal guys that you're going to bring in. We'll see what happens with Hero Kanu, the Ohio State defensive lineman who was in for a visit this weekend. But it's just it's just one of those weird years, and that's going to happen in the portal. Attrition is going to happen. Rod, we used to track attrition, and it's a big thing. And you can look at the times when Texas has had a down year. Usually it coincides with a couple recruiting classes earlier where you have major attrition. Now, attrition, you can survive it to an extent because in years past, it'd been like, well, you just have to throw these young guys in there. Now you got the portal to where you can go get a Cole Brevard, you can go get a Travis Shaw, you can go get some of these other guys that can help you fill in the gaps. But I think it just speaks to a couple things. I think you've had two tremendous teachers at the position with Bo Davis and Kenny Baker. And Coach, this to me is a sign of a great developmental program. It's one thing, and look, I take nothing away from Sark from this standpoint. You recruit guys, when you recruit guys to fit a vision and it works out, you feel great about it. But when you take guys that you didn't recruit, that may not fit your plan, they may not be, you may not have gone, if you had to go back and do it over, you may not have recruited them. But when you can take them and have them leaving school playing their best football, and they played productive football for you, and now they're going on to the NFL, you've Rod, one of my favorite words early in Stark's tenure, repurpose. Can you repurpose those guys, repackage those guys? That to me is a sign of a great developmental program when you can take guys that, hey, we just inherited this guy, and between his work ethic and us pushing the right buttons, we got the most out of him. That's a sign of a staff that really knows what they're doing from a player development standpoint.
You know what, Coach, to add to that, the player development thing was really impressive about creating that pipeline. And Jeff's right, you got to fill in the gaps because you're going to have the gap year, if you will, at D tackle potentially. When you can do it, and then you actually have multiple coaches who also have been a part of it.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Running backs, you've done that, right? Multiple coaches have come in and been a part of that pipeline. Your D tackle room, your D line room is going to be like that. Multiple coaches have come in and been a part of that. You're trying to create that at wide receiver too. With multiple coaches, it didn't matter. It's like it's the culture and really the overall. If you just talk about the program itself and the roster construction, that if you're bringing in the right coaches and you're bringing in the right players, that you don't necessarily have to have a coaching change, even turnover, something as drastic as that. That's really impactful. It doesn't stall your development. In that room, there doesn't need to necessarily be a disconnect from one coach to another. And Texas has proven that at several positions now. And maybe it's because of the type of turnover they're having with their coaching staff, coaches, that it's not guys that coaches, he's not upgrading. He's not getting rid of guys who aren't necessarily cutting the mustard, who aren't performing at a high level. If coaches are moving on because they are achieving, then he's able to bring in other guys who, have also been able to check the criteria, or at least fit the criteria that he wants for another great coach.
Yeah. And the thing that the common denominator in the development of all these guys is a strength and conditioning staff. That's the common denominator. We've had running back coaches come and go, defensive line coaches come and go, but the development of the players by our strength staff has been back to Mad Dog in his prime, and of course strength and conditioning has changed through the years. It went from just straight raw strength. Remember Dana LeDuc, who was the strength coach for years at Texas, was a great shot and discus guy. One of the two or both. Anyway, from then you went through where the core training was really huge, and then they kind of go to just hips, man. Everything starts in the hips. And for whatever reason, we've evolved into this point with Torrey Becton that we are, is that right? Torrey Becton,
Mm-hmm.
Is that right? Yeah.
Yep.
I'm sorry about that. When you get old, sometimes when thoughts are circling around, you got to grab them because they may not come back around. But Torrey Becton and his staff, hats off to them, and what a great job they have done in the development of these guys. And it's not just a defensive lineman. Gunnar Helm is a guy. Again, a year ago, I called him just a guy. I called him a jag because that's what I thought he was. but for him to develop the way he's developed and to have the strength and the core to be able to take on the defensive ends that he took on this year and linebackers, it's just really a great feather in our cap, I think, when you're talking in terms of kids reaching their genetic potential. They can do it at the University of Texas, and that's something that we hadn't been able to say for a while.
Yeah, no, it's a really good point. And like I said, we'll see. Obviously, this pre-draft process, a lot of Longhorns are going to look to increase their draft stock. I think Texas is expecting another really successful draft, double-digit players drafting. Not saying how many players that's going to be, but I think it's a pretty safe assumption that Texas will be in double digits in overall players drafted this upcoming NFL draft. All right,
can I dole out some credit here real quick, Rod?
Go out there, brother. Please do.
I haven't gotten a chance to do this, and I've said this for a few years now, Coach. I 100% credit to Torrey Beck and Sark, this whole staff, but I think the evaluations that the last year and a half Coach Herman was there, when you look, Jonathan Brooks didn't have a Power 4 offer. I mean, I think Texas was his only Power 4 offer. Barron Sorrell was a guy that didn't have a ton of offers. There were some great Gunnar Helm was another one. There were some great evaluations in that class. Guys that doing what we do, guys that might have been kind of value or high 3 stars. You said, okay, maybe there's something there, but a lot of those guys ended up helping a different regime. But a lot of those guys, Coach, that you guys evaluated and looked at ended up helping Texas win a lot of football games and getting this thing back to where we all expect it to be.
Yeah, that was Derek Chain.
Mm-hmm.
Derek did a great job, and unfortunately, he's not in the business anymore. At least he's not actively working for a university. I think he's still in the business, but he's not actively working for. But the whole coaching staff and of course Tom too. They did a good job. I think it took a year or two to kind of figure out what it's going to take to compete at this level,
mm-hmm.
But when they got it figured out, that's a great point. Thanks for bringing that up, Jeff.
What I think is interesting is just the different kind of ideologies that really, when you look at coaches and their blueprint to win, their recipe to win, their formula to win, whatever it is, all coaches, not all coaches, but a lot of coaches believe in something different in terms of this is the best or the most successful blueprint to win. And then some coaches I also admire, they come in and kind of look at the resources they have and then they build the blueprint around the resources they have. But, every coach has had their own vision, and Tom Herman's vision is very different than Sark's vision for a football team. And I'm not saying, one's better or another, but Sark's definitely been more effective in achieving his vision than Tom Herman was overall. Like, look at Tom Herman's receivers look very different than, Sark's receivers. His O-linemen, their approach to O-line play and roster construction on the O-line, very different. The defensive players, like, that is fascinating to me, how all coaches just have their own belief system, if you will. That these are the types of players we need. Mike Gundy's fascinating when it comes to that. Mike Gundy's always defensively, they don't on the back end, back seven, for a while, he said they didn't recruit positions. We stopped recruiting positions because with our scholarship limits and limitations, if you will, we didn't have the luxury to miss on a defensive player. So to Jeff's point, we were always looking to repurpose a guy if he didn't work out somewhere. Oh, you ain't worked out on a linebacker? All right, man, let's see if he can work out maybe on the edge. He can be a undersized edge player. Oh, you didn't work out at corner? Man, you might be a safety. Oh, he's not a good safety? Well, you might get a good linebacker. And they would just kind of repurpose guys, and then they find home for guys. But they also wouldn't waste that defensive scholarship on. He came in, he could play one position. If he couldn't play one position, then it was a waste for us. And it kind of ended up working out for him. And it's amazing how, based on the ecosystem that you're adapting to, and then based on the resources you have, how coaches, how they come up with these different ideas and these different recipes to win. Very fascinating stuff.
Yeah, the not to belabor the point, but with Mike Gundy, right, I think the guy that most encapsulates his successful run at Oklahoma State in terms of what you're talking about, kind of repurposing guys, is Malcolm Rodriguez. How you go from an 8-man high school, playing 8-man high school football at quarterback and being a high school wrestler to leaving college as an all Big 12 linebacker and an NFL draft pick. Like how does that happen?
Exactly. No, I'm with you. It's amazing. It really is. That is fascinating stuff.
One more thing, Rod. I will say this in Herm's defense. He didn't have NIL. You know, not that everybody was on an even playing field, but the NIL has allowed us to expand our recruiting geographically, mainly. You know, pulling kids out of Florida and California and Arizona and things that, of course, you know, we got, you know, it's Bijan, you know, that was Tim Beck coordinator. Tim Beck, yeah, recruited him, you know, so those guys did a good job. They didn't have the NIL, but you know, I thought they left the pantry not complete, the cupboard completely bare. It wasn't a lot of great players, but there were a few young ones that really helped, you know, in this resurgence of the program.
Yeah, no, I agree with you on that. That's a good point about that. All right, let's thank our friends over at Flat Creek State Winery. Did you know the most awarded wine in Texas is actually the vineyard closest to Austin? That's right, folks. Flat Creek State Winery is just minutes from downtown Austin, and they've won award after award this year for their vintage wine, Super Texan. Super Texan is now available at your local spec, so give it a try. Of course, Flat Creek is also a gorgeous venue. Not only do they produce some of the best premium wines that you'll ever taste, but also it's a fantastic venue available for barbecues and wine tastings every single weekend. Perfect for a day date with your significant other or a weekend getaway with your significant other. I've also seen the Flat Creek Estate wines on display at my local Central Market. So that's pretty cool if the word is getting out. So you can catch Super Texan at your local specs, or you can also get some of their great wines at your local Central Market. But I'm a big fan of their Pinot Grigio. It's really good. Their Rosé is very, very refreshing. The Super Texan, trust me, folks, that's their that's their home run. It's a grand slam, if you will, grand slam home run. It's been getting awards after awards. It's great. My wife loves it, and her mom loves it, and actually my mom loves it because they had it over the holidays, and they couldn't say enough great things about Super Texas. So check it out for yourself. That's Flat Creek Estate Winery, flatcreekestate.com. All right. Let's get to
Ron, they need you on there swirling that wine around and drinking it in slow motion. They need you on one of their commercials, Ron.
Hey, well, it ain't me. I like it. I do. But like I said, my wife, she's got some in there right now. Like literally, I'm not making that up. That in the house right now, there's some Super Texan right on the counter.
Props to whoever Flat Creek used for that commercial, because every time I see it, it makes me like, man, I want wine all of a sudden. That's good. That's good advertising, Rod.
It's great advertising.
We've even had some of our subscribers become engaged out there.
That's right. You're right. Good point, Coach. That's right. Yes, somebody got engaged out there, and she said yes. By the way, she did say yes. All right, let's get to some of the super chats. How about this from Football Junkie? Football Junkie, can you guys explain Pro Football Focus? Some of the highest ranked players on there aren't ranked in the top 100 this upcoming draft. How much weight does Pro Football Focus hold? Now, that's a great question, Football Junkie. I use it like any other analytical tool. It's not. I don't necessarily. It's not the end all be all with me. I use it as something in addition to other research that I'm doing. But they swear by their grades, and they have their own, like I said, grading system. From what I understand, it's based on how a player does his job, how well a player does their job, or how well a player fulfills their responsibility and obligation within the scheme. Now, this is when people get really picky. They're like, well, how the hell do they know what the scheme is? You know what I mean? This is the great, there was an argument, and you probably know this, Jeff, about Trevon Diggs.
Yeah.
Right? For years, you can go Google this. Right, Trevon Diggs during his All-Pro years with the Cowboys, playing some of his best football, even when he had all the interceptions, like his Pro Football Focus scores were really low. And essentially, the theory that I have is why he scores low, because that's a lot of Cowboys fans were always upset. They were irate, like, why is he graded low when he's a second-team All-Pro, whatever it is. And it's because he oftentimes would operate outside of the structure of the defense. to make some of his plays. He was just an instinctual player, right? There you go. Yeah. There you go. So there you go. Grading every play and grading it on production and all that kind of stuff. But apparently, because he would color outside the lines a lot, that his grade would drop. So even on some plays where he would make the play, they'd have with a lower score. But you can make the argument, well, that's stupid. If you're making good plays, then it should matter. That's just what instinctual football players do. So there are some players who are outliers within the Pro Football Focus system where they don't always have high scores, but the film or the productivity actually doesn't line up with the grade. There are other players who have really high grades that don't match any product, that don't have any productivity on the field, and they don't make a lot of plays on the field, but they have really high grades. So it all depends on how much weight you're willing to, and how much trust you have in Pro Football Focus. I do trust them to a certain extent. I do get that there are inconsistencies. There are inconsistencies.
Yeah, I liken it to kind of what I was doing when I was helping out, giving my 2 cents, helping rank players at 24/7 Sports, giving my input to the rankings committee. You go see a kid at a camp or 7-on-7 or whatever. It's part of the evaluation tool, but it's not like you said, right? It's not the be all end all. And to me, it always goes back to, okay, when I go watch a game in person, what are my eyes telling me? That's the big thing. That would, anything like PFF, I think it tells you, okay, I need to go back and there's clearly something I missed one way or the other, right? Like if your eye test didn't tell you that this guy was impactful, yet the PFF score is really high, like, well, maybe I need to go back. Maybe I missed something, or vice versa. Like with Trayvon Diggs, like, I can't believe it's that low. And what am I missing? So it's a tool. It's a lot better than what we used to have in Gen Pop, Rod, to do such things, which was nothing. We had to try to do it ourselves, and thank goodness I don't have to do that anymore. That's hours saved on a Sunday. But yeah, it's better than what we used to have, but it's not the final say by any stretch.
Yeah.
There's a great story about Mike Leach talking about guys with great potential, and you see the NFL, they don't do it as much as they used to, but they used to be really bad about it. If a guy had all the measurables and he had a strong arm, for example, as a quarterback, then people would take a chance on him. And I don't know if y'all remember this story, but Mike Leach said, look, the junior high coach had this 6'2", 170-pound eighth grader that could throw it through a brick wall, but he didn't have any accuracy. But he left him there because the freshman coach was really excited about him, and he was going to coach him to be more accurate. Well, he gets up there and he can throw it the length of the football field, but he didn't have any accuracy. Well, the varsity coach says, I can take care of that. And this kid just keeps going up and up and up. And he goes, the kid has never been accurate, never consistently accurate. And then people give him scholarships to go to college. And guess what? He's still not accurate. He said, it's not rocket science. If a guy's not accurate, don't mess with him because he ain't got it.
Yeah.
Right.
I do that.
Might be a good example of that. I don't know.
No, coach, he said, Mike Leach once said, I'd rather take a shortstop in baseball, turn him into a quarterback, rather than take a strong arm, inaccurate quarterback and try to build an offense around him. He said, a shortstop, he's accurate. He knows exactly where he's going. He can throw off platform when he's got to. But he's basically getting to your point. He's like, accuracy, that's one of it's key staples where you're talking about what Bill Walsh wanted in a quarterback, what Sark wants in a quarterback, or what the great Mike Leach wanted in a quarterback. Accuracy is always in the top three because you can't teach it. The one guy that they are pointing out historically, there are a couple of guys, right? It's like trying to teach a guy how to shoot. Like it's historically, there ain't a lot of examples of somebody learning how to be a great shooter. Usually that's just something natural. But Josh Allen's one of those. Josh Allen was an accurate quarterback. He's more accurate now than he used to be. He's one of the guys that kind of defies the old Mike Leach belief because he coming out of college, he was not accurate at the lowest levels of college football. Like he was never accurate. He was just always just a physical freak, and actually has gotten more accurate over time. Jalen Hurts is another example.
Yeah.
That defies that, the kind of an outlier. Because I agree with Mike Leach for the most part. I'm not even giving a guy a scholarship if he ain't accurate. But there are a few guys, they do kind of, they defy that logic. And I think that's just two guys I can name, but that ain't good, Coach. It's the only two I really can name, honestly. Yeah. I can think of.
The two little anecdotes to share as CJ joins us. Coach Shipley, I remember there was a college coach one time who told me Mike Leach, it was his post Texas Tech career, goes into a chalk talk with the staff where this college coach was coaching at the time, and as Mike Leach is stirring an adult beverage with the dry erase marker that he's about to get on the whiteboard with, the head coach says, "Hey, can you teach our quarterback coach some drills to coach accuracy?" And Leach just stops in his tracks, turns around, and says, "Coach accuracy? Yeah, recruit better." That was that. And then you heard what Coach Royal said about potential, right, Coach Shipley?
Yeah.
Yeah, potential. It means he ain't worth a damn right now.
Exactly. Yeah, that's I feel that same, but potential will get you fired. That's another good quote.
Yeah,
right?
that's the one I always heard.
Yeah, potential will get you fired. Hey, what's up, CJ? Good to see you, brother. Glad you could join us. For the folks who don't know, because CJ is always on the go, tell the people where you are right now.
I think I'm in Lafayette. I think. So I'm somewhere on I-10. I've just been cruising down I-10. I tell you what, that's a long drive. Not a lot out here in Louisiana. So we still got about 4.5 hours to go before Mobile. But I made 2 stops this morning. The first one was at C.E. King and Houston. The other one down in Port Arthur Memorial. We'll start there just real quick. I'll only stay for a couple minutes. But Texas hosted 2026 linebacker Tank King and 2026 cornerback Brock King for the Saturday junior day. No relation there, by the way, but 2 really talented prospects. Both of one Texas are recruiting pretty heavily. Tank, one of the top linebackers in the state. He's in the works right now to set up an official visit. I know that was one of the big takeaways from this weekend's festivities. Jeff, you were there to hear it all with us. Is June 13th and 20th feel like those are going to be the 2 big days for the Longhorns for June official visits. Tank said that he's going to get with his family, see what days work. Brock very much the same. But I wanted to share this because I know it's a ways away, but when I stopped at C.E. King today, I don't know if I've ever seen a class at a single school with as much talent ways away than what I saw today. They have a 5'8", 5'9" running back right now, Rod and Coach, that he ran 10.4 last year. So his freshman spring, he ran 10.45 FAT. So that's electronic. He's expected to go 10.3 this year. He went 6.74, I believe, is what he did in the 60. Again, if you know anything like that, that's the fastest of the 2028s in all of the country. And that's top 8, top 9, I believe, in the entire country for all classifications. Pretty darn quick. On the flip side, they got a defensive lineman, Oswald Jaquette, I believe is his name. 6'2.5", 292, 2028 as well. Throws shot 55 feet already. He's the number 1 shot put thrower in 2028. He's the number 8 shot putter as well in all the country. So he's going to be, both of them will probably be down in Austin for the UIL state, track meet. But I wanted to get those names out there today. I tweeted about both of them. I'll put a note up on TexasFootball.com. But that's ridiculous to have 2 of the best track and field athletes for their class, for their event in the same class. I couldn't believe it. Wow. Dylan Mitchell is the track kid's name. He earned an Arkansas offer last week. So they're starting to rise a little bit. Both played freshmen this year. I had to stop by and see them on the way down to Mobile.
All right, CJ, people think those are fake names. So CJ's going to keep those
I thought they were too. I thought they were fake times until I saw them today. But my goodness, I sat there. I was just jaw hit the floor. I was like, as Oswald, the shot putter, I said, are these real times? He looks like, oh yeah, I'm gonna hit 60 this year. I'm like, all right. We might just go ahead and forego all sorts of football and just go straight to the Olympics. Who knows?
How big is the kid that shot puts? Oswald
Jaquette. Jaquette's a name I should be familiar with now that I'm in Louisiana, right? A little Cajun name. But no, he 6'2.5". He'll probably end up being 6'3" or 6'4". He's going to be a kid that kids offer, right? You don't see that level of explosivity at that age at that size, but he's 292, 295. He'll be 300 pounds by the time,
Okay.
fall season comes rolling around again, but pretty darn impressive, 100%.
Hey, y'all
CJ,
can take,
I
y'all
want
can
to
take
ask you this. This is kind of off the up in the Metroplex area, but it is a UT connection. Have you looked at Derek Loki's son yet? Logan Loki.
I've not. I've heard
he's
about him.
6'3", 220 pounder. That's a 28 class. That
Okay.
is supposed to be a stud. He was FBU All-American.
That's a big kid.
Anyway, he's Derek Loki, of course, was a great defensive lineman from Denton Ryan back in the day.
Oh yeah.
He was in Jordan's class actually. Signed in 2004 with University of Texas, and his oldest son. He's got like 3 or 4 boys, and this is the oldest one. So hopefully we can keep a pipeline going to the University of Texas, because he's already getting some offers as a freshman.
Wow.
You guys can keep your 10 4s and your 6'7", 60s. Give me 292 pounds that throws a shot, put 60 feet. That's we can work with that.
That's a big track. That was one thing that we always try to look at was track. And if you got a big guy that throws a shot put 45 feet, he's not very explosive. He's just not. I take those big guys and their shot and discus measurements the same as a 100-meter guy. I mean, there's certainly a lot of technique involved, but the explosiveness of a shot putter, if you're a 45-foot shot putter, you're not very explosive. You're not. We got guys, 300 pounds throw 45 feet. That's not impressive, but that is impressive for a kid that looking at sophomore year going 60 feet. That's unbelievable.
Coach, I got to see him. They were working out in the weight room today, and it wasn't a heavy lift day. It wasn't one of those max days or test days, I walked in, and he's got 3.5 plates on each side. I'm sitting there saying, whew, that's a big boy moving a lot of weight. So that stood out to me. That 28 class at CE King, I think I'll be down there several times to see them, because, again, that was only 2 of them. I think they've got 3 or 4 others that were 8th grade All-Americans or, in that classification, if you get what I'm saying.
All right, CJ, I know you're not going to be with us for long. You said you made another stop while you've been on the road there?
Yeah, I stopped at Port Arthur Memorial, the former home of a few Longhorns, Jalen Gilbo being the most recent. But Tank King, Brock King, both of them were on campus this past weekend. Tank, 6'2.5", 215-pound linebacker. Look, we talk about how important it is for guys like Anthony Hill. Bo Barnes is the next one. Big bodies and linebacker that run very well. Tank told me today he wants to run 10.9, 10.8, and he thinks he's going to get that within the first week or 2 of the spring track season. So, again, linebackers in the SEC, you got to have size, you got to be able to find the football, but more than anything, you got to have speed, and that's one of them right there as well. Brock King, and this is another defensive back in the state, very high on TCU, Baylor, SMU. Texas hosted them for a visit this past weekend. Got to talk with Terry Joseph a little bit. Also, kind of odd, we haven't talked about it a whole much, but Sark wasn't there. He was under the weather for the junior day. Bit unfortunate as well. But Brock King, a guy that's going to go 10-7, 10-8 at cornerback. His coach, Morgan, down there, great guy. Got to meet him today for the first time. He's been there almost a decade, spit out tons of D1 talent out of PA Memorial. But he kind of likened him a little bit to Jalen Gilbo. He says he's a little twitchier in the hips. He can move a little bit laterally, a little bit better. Will probably stick to the outside, whereas we've obviously seen Gilbo moved to the interior, that slot, that star spot. Said Brock has a little bit more twitch to him with his hips, and I got to watch him a little bit. Obviously, his huddle, his film, got to see him in the weight room just briefly. Twitchy kid, and 10-7, 10-8. Certainly, you can see that as well.
Yeah. All right. Good stuff, CJ. CJ, we appreciate you, man, because we know you are busy on the road there. Please be safe on the road, and we'll check in with you tomorrow sometime.
Sounds good, guys. I appreciate you guys. Y'all have a good one.
You too.
All right. Be safe.
CJ, man. He's always on the road. Guys, working hard for us. We appreciate it. And go check out some of his tweets. He'll keep you up to date with everything all the nuggets that he's getting while he's on the road there. All right, let's, before we move on, let's take another one of our sponsors. Let's thank our friends over at South Point before we move on. Our friends over at South Point Dodge. We appreciate them very much for being sponsors of the winning drive and being a member of the On Texas football family. Longhorn fans, you can score an easy extra point this season when you get to the point with our friends over at South Point Dodge. South Point Dodge has over 600 vehicles in stock right now, including an amazing selection of Ram 1500s, 2500s, and 3500s. Whatever your truck needs, South Point Dodge is your one-stop shop. They also right now have over 50 Ram 2500s, all marked down with huge savings right now at South Point Dodge. So it's a perfect time for you to head on over to South Point Dodge. You can actually go see their inventory for yourself. It's in South Austin off of I-35, or you can go online first and go to southpointdodge.com and check out their inventory there as well. South Point Dodge, Austin's automotive everything. Whatever your truck needs, South Point Dodge is your one-stop shop. So thank you very much to South Point Dodge for sponsoring the winning drive and being a part of the On Texas football family. That's southpointdodge.com. All right, let's get back to some of these questions, and then we will jump into some of the mock drafts before we get done with today's program. How about this one from the Nick Turn? The Nick Turn says, pure speculation here, but is Jim Knowles heading out to Penn State? Give us a peek behind the curtain. Is Ryan Day looking to move to the NFL? Yeah, I mean, it could be. I don't know if that is the case. Now, the exodus of talent may push him to the NFL. The whole point of him going to the NFL is because he was tired of Ohio State and the pressure of, him being on the hot seat, even though he's one of the most successful coaches in college football, but he couldn't beat Michigan. He can't beat your rival. That'll always get you in hot water with your fans. But now, I mean, who cares about beating Michigan? I mean, you got the last laugh. You're the national champion. So, first of all, there aren't that many jobs left in the NFL.
Yeah, I was gonna say
like one job left, right? Is it who's Vegas? Who hasn't found the coach yet?
The Jets, I think. I don't think the Jets
got Aaron Glenn. Did Jets not get Aaron Glenn? I got to go. Right? It ain't that many jobs left. I know that. Like it ain't that many left, guys. So yeah, I mean, I don't know. I got to figure out. So I don't know if this cycle of the coaching carousel. I don't know if this will be the one.
The other thing, though, too, to think about regarding Ryan Day, Rod, when the NFL. If you're a college coach looking to make that jump, you got to hitch your wagon to a guy that either is or is on a trajectory to be a franchise quarterback. That's why the timing didn't work out. But if I was Ryan Day, that Bears job would have appealed to me because I could go get to coach Caleb Williams while he's still on a rookie contract. Now you take a look at Jim Harbaugh leaving, you're like, okay, yeah, the Chargers is a good job. It's a good job because you got Justin Herbert entering the prime of his career. That's a really attractive job. So I think this is just one of those deals where it was unfortunate. There was just Larry Johnson and Jim Knowles butted heads, and hey, somebody ended up having to go, and it was Jim Knowles, and you're not going to turn down that kind of money he was offered to go to Penn State. So I don't think it gives us a peek behind the curtain. But what it does do, Coach and Rod, it whoever the new coordinator, because there were word that the Texans, Rod, are interested in Chip Kelly for their OC vacancy. If Ohio State goes into next year with two coordinators, that'll give us some good research to do, some good cyber stalking, if you will, Rod, before that game in Columbus next season.
Oh, yeah, you got to do it with the defensive coordinator already, but you're right. I mean, I think Chip Kelly should go to the NFL. This is a perfect time for him to do it. I mean, especially with the Texans, with C.J. Stroud. I mean, you can go to Texas. You can ride that C.J. Stroud, momentum into – a head coaching job again. Now, does he want to coach in the league again? I don't know. Not everybody wants to coach in the league. So I'm not sure if Ryan Day is looking to make that move right now with this current coaching carousel, just because, as Matthew pointed out, thank you, Matthew, only one job left, and that's the Saints. I thought Mike McCarthy was going to get the Saints job. If Mike McCarthy doesn't get the Saints job, that sucks. Talk about, I mean, that's a lose-lose. The Cowboys lose on that one because they downgraded in the coaching search because I think, obviously, Mike McCarthy's a better coach than Brian Schottenheimer. And then Mike McCarthy, he probably should have just taken the low ball deal that Jerry gave him and just stayed the coach of the Cowboys. Because now he could end up getting on the outskirts. I guess you can just wait another cycle. And then next year it'll be 5-6 more jobs open again. That's the way the NFL works. So he just waited out. But yeah, I don't know who's gonna get that Saints job. Does anybody want the Saints job? Because Saints are in like salary cap hell too, I think. It's one of their issues.
And what are they do? What are they gonna do at quarterback? I mean, Spencer Rattler's not the answer. So Yeah, you gotta. Hey, I've heard a few fan base say it, but it would be appropriate if the Saints fans just wanted their team to tank for Arch. Just start the tank now and hope you get the number one pick whenever Arch comes out.
Bro, I've heard this is how the tank for Arch thing is so deep. I've heard Cowboys fans say this is Jerry Jones' ultimate move. That's why he hired Brian Schottenheimer. That's why he had to get rid of Mike. Because Mike McCarthy's gonna win too many games. So I need somebody who ultimately gonna screw this thing up so bad that we will be in a perfect position to draft Arch Manning in a couple of years. And that's why Brian Schottenheimer. Now, I'm not saying that's true,
right?
But
I'm gonna tell you what, that sounds like an Aggie take to me. I can't go there. That's an Aggie take if I ever heard one.
It is a delusional Cowboys fan take, and they may be in the same mindset in terms of that.
And I'm telling you, I know so many people that are giving up their season tickets. It's just just beyond explanation.
Yeah, no, it is. I don't get it either. But we ain't here to discuss the Cowboys and their issues. But we know
I love though, Rod, how the online narrative around Arch has gone from he's only ranked that high because of his last name to now you've got NFL fan bases wanting their teams to tank for him. He started 2 games in college, so I love how that narrative flips real quick.
That is a good point. Hey, to the Nick Turns point about Jim Knowles, does Penn State now have the best coordinator duo in college football? Koltenicky and
hard to think of a better one. I'll tell you what. You talk about the heat on Ryan Day. If you're James Franklin, you paid a lot for Andy Koltenicky last offseason. We know what Jim Knowles is making. Your last year with Drew Aller. Better get over that mountaintop this year.
Yeah, it's about time. I agree. If he does, that's a great point. I agree. It's a lot more pressure on him now too. There's no question about that. I love the Big 12 connection too. I brought this up the other day too. Big 12 connection. Koltenicky, Jim Knowles. They're like 2 of the best coordinators in coming out of Big 12 country. We always talked about how experimentally advanced and progressive the Big 12 was. I think that proves it once again. All right, let's get back to a couple of questions. Thank you for that question, the Nick Turn. Brian says, Tyreek rookie year, 61 receptions, 593 yards, 6 touchdowns. Xavier Worthy's rookie year, 59, 638, and 6 touchdowns. I did not know that, Brian. I appreciate it. Xavier Worthy should have had a better year than that. Go look at all the deep passes that they just couldn't connect on early on the year. I think next year he'll be, as they try to phase out Travis Kelce. Hell, Travis Kelce may retire. They 3-peat. Travis Kelce might retire. He might decide to ask, might pop the question on the field to Taylor Swift and ride off into the sunset together and make millions of dollars on the podcast with his brother. All right, so if that happens, then Xavier Worthy is kind of thrust into a whole nother role on that team. Because I thought DeAndre Hopkins coming on the team would really put him on the back burner offensively. And it really didn't as much as I thought because they don't use DeAndre Hopkins in that way as a number 1 wide receiver. So I think next year, no matter what happens, ultimately if Travis Kelce comes back, he's the guy. But they're phasing Travis Kelce out because they know that they're going to have to. They got to start opening up the offense to other players because it's just too easy for everybody to try to take away Travis Kelce. They know that's where he's going, and that's why you've seen him diversify the offense. But no, I think Xavier Worthy is going to be 1,000. I would predict he's 1,000-yard receiver next year. Because he should be an 800-yard receiver this year. And he plays 17 games now. It's not as tough to get to 1,000 yards as it used to be. I'll tell you the thing that's really the thing that I'm learning though from the playoffs more than anything that I think can apply to Texas. I think, and I've said this before, the new cheat code in football is a scrambling quarterback. Period. The quarterbacks that can scramble. And Patrick Mahomes in that last game, what did he do? Was scrambling all over the place. Now, they had a couple of design runs from, which is freaky stuff. They usually don't do that. But a scrambling quarterback, whether you're talking about Josh Allen's ability or you were talking about Patrick Mahomes' ability or you're talking about Jaden Daniels' ability or Jalen Hurts' ability, guys, that is the cheat code now. Mm-hmm. That is the cheat code because no defensive coordinator can game plan for it. And they don't even bother because they can't. Now, if they put a spy on a guy, great. But a spy with a good quarterback that can move around, that can scramble, it opens up so much in the intermediate middle of the field. Opens up so many one-on-ones in other parts of the offense. And that's what you want. So I think with the Arch Manning, that's what I'm most looking forward to. We talked about this, Coach, in football theory. The scrambling element. Texas missed it. Quinn does it okay, but Quinn is not. That's not natural. He's not naturally instinctive like that, off schedule, off script. But Arch is. Arch is actually a very instinctual player, and he likes to scramble. I think you're going to get that back because when Sam Ellinger was the quarterback, you had a lot of that scrambling element. That's going to come back, and people forget how much of a cheat code that is. Guys, the scrambling, you can make the argument, is the most efficient play in football. It actually averages more than the average pass play. The average scramble averages more than the average pass play in the NFL. I didn't make that up. That's real. Like, it's the most efficient play in football, and you can't really predict when it's going to happen. Texas will get that back, and I think you're going to be surprised how much of a weapon it can be.
Go back and look at the first two CFP games Texas played. How many times against Cade Klubnik or Sam Levitt, PK had the right call, the coverage was right, everything that defense did everything right.
Yep.
But one of those two guys bought themselves about another couple seconds to let a receiver break open on a scramble drill, and you had the right coverage, the right front. It was executed. It's just his ability to scramble got a guy open, and you gave up an explosive play just because of that scrambling ability.
Yeah. You know, as long as they protect themselves, you got to learn how to be a smart, responsible runner. We talk about that all the time, Jeff. As long as you're smart about it, learn how to slide, learn how to get a bound. Hey, Patrick Mahomes is so good at protecting himself, guys. He gets penalties called on other people. All right, that's how good you need to be at protecting yourself as a quarterback. You get that good, then I think Arch can be that. I ain't saying he's going to be Patrick Mahomes, but the type of scrambler Patrick Mahomes is, guys. Patrick Mahomes only runs in the playoffs. He's a dual threat quarterback, but basically only uses the ability in the playoffs. Go look. He's one of 6 quarterbacks that have been able to rush for at least 50 yards in back-to-back playoff games. Only 6 quarterbacks have done it. And it's like Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson. I want to say Steve McNair is part of this group. I mean, the list is here. I'll get you a list right now. Here it is.
Russell Wilson's probably on there, isn't he?
9 back-to-back games. No, back-to-back playoff games. Games. I make it. So there's 6 quarterbacks in NFL history that have rushed for 50 yards, at least 50 yards in back-to-back playoff games in a single postseason. It is Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen. You're right. Russell Wilson's on there, Jeff. He's 2012. He did it. Steve McNair did it in 99. Otto Graham in 1950, and then Patrick Mahomes. One of those things is not like the other.
I don't think Otto Graham was wearing a face mask when he did that.
Exactly. He only uses it when he has to. That's what I want from Arch. Because Sark doesn't want you to major in quarterback run game. He says that. And I think Sark at one point, if he's just scrambling all the time, Sark will be like, hey man, that's not what I want. I don't want you in harm's way a lot. Especially if he's an irresponsible runner. I don't want you in harm's way. I need you to work from the pocket. And ultimately the Mannings want that too, right? The Mannings, they want to learn how to be a pocket passing quarterback, develop into a pocket passing quarterback. But the Kim Kardashian, Nicki Minaj, Serena Williams size, Cardi B size, Megan Thee Stallion size butt is in big games and in critical moments, I need you to break it out. And that's what Mahomes does. He doesn't use it when he doesn't need to. But in the playoffs, dude turns into a dual threat QB. That's what I want from Arch. Big games, dual threat Arch. It's not a big game. I just need you to work from the pocket, do your thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Different guys, Rod, but we saw Tom Herman do that with Sam later in Sam's career. I mean, hey, if you're playing Louisiana Tech, you might want to limit how many carries he's getting. But hey, you play LSU the following week, he's probably going to have to carry it 20 times for you to win.
Yep.
Or against Oklahoma or that Sugar Bowl against Georgia, there, save he's going to put his body through punishment. Just kind of save him from himself by taking that option out of his hands and making sure you're either throwing the ball, handing it off to the back, whatever. There's smart ways to do it.
I'm going to ask you guys about something because I was talking to someone about Colin Simmons, and they think that he might be the best edge rusher, edge defender potentially in college football next year. Like he's got that kind of ceiling, and I agree. I think he can be. But he, as a sophomore, that would be kind of mind blowing. And then we started talking about it. And really, is this year an outlier in the fact that a lot of the best players at their positions are going to be sophomores? Your best receivers are, right, Jeremiah Smith and Ryan Williams.
Mm-hmm.
Your best edge rushers are going to be, obviously, just talked about it, Colin Simmons. And what's the Stewart kid?
Stewart of South Carolina.
And he's a sophomore, right?
Yeah.
And he's a youngster too. Trying to think about it. Leonard Moore. Honestly, I'm not joking. I think Leonard Moore might be the best cornerback potentially in college football. I think he might be in the Thorpe conversation. I think he's that good. I said when he was coming out of high school. You can go back and check the tape. I said he's the best coverage corner I've seen in the state of Texas, in Central Texas at the time. And I said I don't know if that would be a better one in the state of Texas. You got to show me the one that's better, that can cover better than he can.
Right.
He's proven that. And he's going to be a sophomore, right? It seems like a lot of the best players out there at their top spots are sophomores. It was just a random observation. But does that seem like that's rare? Or does that seem like that happens more often than we've observed?
I don't think it happens that often. I'm hoping that we'll start progressing into that. But so you're saying Colin Simmons could be up for another national award? Could be another Longhorn defensive guy up for a national award?
If he's the best, if they're saying he's going to be the best edge defender, like in college, then he's got to be up for it. He's got to be a finalist for one of them defensive awards, right? I'm assuming. I don't know if he'll win it, because sometimes they don't want to give young guys the award, and I get that. And I think he'll have competition on his own damn team with guys like Anthony Hill. So I think Anthony Hill will be in a couple of discussions for those national awards. But I agree. I think, Coach, I think you're right. And I think it's all going to be how Texas weaponizes this guy. Now, this year, I'll give him a ton of credit, because the NASCAR package, magnifico. It was brilliant. And I think, honestly, it was done specifically to weaponize Colin Simmons. I think he ended up with 9 sacks. 7 of those came in the NASCAR package. So it basically would isolate him one-on-one on a blocker, on a tackle on the outside, and he would just eat him alive a lot of the time. Now this year, I wonder how they're going to weaponize him. I think the way to weaponize him, and they did some of it last year, was just move him around. They moved him around inside last year a little bit. I say you gotta be able to move him around to hunt matchups if possible from down to down, and even to avoid potentially being isolated in the run game or exploited in the run game at times too. I think maybe you should move him around. So we'll see what they decide to do with him. But I think it's interesting. Someone, Colin says Colin is a lot like Micah Parsons. I was surprised at his speed and ability to drop and spy. Daniel says you could use a Micah Parsons game plan to move him around, like Dan Quinn did a little bit. But that's what I would do.
Couple things. I agree with Coach. We're seeing it this year, but I think it's just one of those years where it's an anomaly, because college football for the last few years has been such an older game because of COVID eligibility. And a lot of guys, a lot of 5th, 6th, 7th year seniors, all those guys are cycled out now after the 2024 season. And then upperclassmen, juniors leaving early for the draft. I think it's just one of those years, Rod, where you're just going to have a lot of stuff. And plus, you go back and look at that 2024 class, there's a lot of talented dudes in that class at premium positions. You're talking about wide receivers, edge rushers, corners. I think that's part of it. I've used this comp, and I like it. They're different players, but Colin Simmons, watching him a little bit in high school, I got the same vibe I got watching Alex Okafor, where you could watch him one game and he's the most dominant guy on the field, and nobody can block him. You can't put a hand on him. Then you watch another game, it's like, I didn't even hardly know he was there.
Yep.
And it's just because you can kind of get away with that. Now, thankfully for Alex found a way to turn it on and didn't turn it off at Texas once he turned it on. And I think we're starting to see Colin Simmons do that and really see him put it all together. So I think Colin Simmons, I don't even think he's scratched the surface yet of how good he can be and how versatile. Like I said, they're different players. I know they tried to kick AO inside at one point. That didn't really work, but Colin Simmons is athletic enough, as we all saw this year. You can do a lot of different things with him within the framework of this defense.
Yeah. Former Kansas City Chief Alex Okafor, right? I guess he's probably rooting for the Chiefs. I mean, I think he's like friends with Patrick Mahomes. So I'm sure he's rooting for the Chiefs, his old team. All right. Actually, I'm going to get to a mock draft here, then we'll get to the end of our live stream for the day. Okay, so real quick, and Matthew, you can pull up the Daniel Jeremiah mock draft real quick. Now, Daniel Jeremiah works for NFL Network. He's their draft analyst, does great work for them. And he recently had a mock draft. Unlike Mel Kiper's mock draft, or most recent mock draft, he had one Longhorn taken in the first round, which was Kelvin Banks. Daniel Jeremiah's got 3 Longhorns taken in the first round of his first mock draft here. He's got Kelvin Banks going 13th overall to the Miami Dolphins. Kind of sexy. He's got Jahdae Barron, fourth. That's the highest I've seen Jahdae Barron in anybody's mock draft. Drafted 14th overall to the Indianapolis Colts here in this mock draft. And he's got Matthew Golden going 21st. So he's got all the Longhorns going within like 7, 8 picks. He's got all the Longhorns going here in the first round of his mock draft. He's got the Matthew Golden going to the Steelers. Ooh, Matthew Golden to the Steelers. Steelers usually don't draft receivers in the first round. That's rare, by the way. That's usually not what they do, but I can see him doing it. They can see him going that route. What do you guys think? Are the Longhorns more likely to get 3 Longhorns in the first round or just 1 Longhorn in the first round? That's kind of where we're at. Most mocks have me with 1 or 3.
I'll tip my cap to Coach on this one because last week when we talked about, hey, who's going to be that second Longhorn drafted, I went with Cam Williams, and then Coach corrected me real quick. It'd probably be Jahdae Barron, and Daniel Jeremiah seems to love him some Jahdae Barron. And that pick with the Colts, hey, Chris Ballard, he's a Texas City guy, and he's shown he's not afraid to pick a Longhorn here or there.
I like that. That's a good point. So that's the Daniel Jeremiah mock draft for NFL.com. Now let's switch over to the Pro Football Focus mock draft. They recently put out their mock draft. I believe it came out today, if I'm not mistaken. And in their mock draft, and I believe now this is not based on their big board. They have Kelvin Banks going to San Fran. Ooh, that would be sexy. At 11 overall, going to the San Francisco 49ers. That would be cool in that Shanahan system. They also here on their mock draft for the Longhorns, they have Jahdae Barron going 23rd overall to the Green Bay Packers. Actually, that's a system I can see Jahdae Barron thriving into because I can see because they love the versatile defensive backs in that system too. Play a lot of sub packages, dime and nickel coverages. Also here in their mock draft, I believe that is it actually. So there you go. They have 2. Oh, sorry, Matthew Golden. I apologize. Matthew Golden is 25th on their mock draft. So they got 3 as well. They got Matthew Golden at 25th to the Texans, which I also could see because they had a lot of injuries at the wide receiver position. Tank Dell got injured again. Stephon Diggs ended up missing the later half of the season because of an injury. Nico Collins, he's their number 1. They're building around them. They need to rebuild that wide receiving core for C.J. Stroud with some more long-term investments. Matthew Golden will be a nice one. Who's H-Town? I mean, he's from H-Town, if I'm not mistaken.
Mm-hmm. He's a Klein Kane kid. Yep.
All right, so there you go. Pro Football Focus latest mock draft and the latest mock draft for Daniel Jeremiah have 3 Longhorns going in the first round. So good news, trending the right way.
It was sexy about Kelvin Banks to the Niners, Rod. Yeah, it's a Shanahan system, but if he's what we think he is, you draft him and put him at right tackle, and then a year or 2 down the road, whenever Trent Williams decides he's ready to put up the saddle and ride in the sunset and go to Canton, you move Kelvin Banks over to left tackle. You've already drafted your replacement for Trent Williams a couple of years before you probably need it.
Yeah, and you ready to get to learn from one of the best, if not the best, left tackle for a couple of years.
Not bad for a Sooner. Not bad for a Sooner.
See, Jeff never forgets. So I appreciate about him. All right, thank our friends at Hardgrove Roofing before we end the winning drive today. Thank you to Hardgrove Roofing, hardgroveroofing.com. You can see them right there. Hardgrove Roofing, folks, they can take care of all of your roofing needs. They have offices all over Texas, Louisiana, and Arkansas, including they got offices in the great state of Texas. As a matter of fact, they're the most pro burnt orange roofing company out there. They have partnerships with Lifetime Longhorns, Burt Auburn. Also, my former teammate, Lifetime Longhorn Stevie Lee, who joins us on the winning drive from time to time to break down some ball. We appreciate them. So know who's on your roof with our friends at Hardgrove Roofing. And right now, courtesy of Hardgrove Roofing, you can get a free roof inspection. Just give them a call at 512-645-3202, and you can get a free roof inspection today at Hardgrove Roofing. That's hardgroveroofing.com. Know who is on your roof. All right, thank you very much to Matthew behind the scenes, he's a real MVP. Couldn't do it without him. Jeff, thank you for the time as well. Coach, we appreciate the levity and the knowledge, the wisdom as always. Thanks to CJ for popping in too, even though he's on the road. So please be safe on the road there, CJ. Thank you all out there for joining us and participating. Sorry I couldn't get to all the questions today, but thank you for the super chats that we got. Tomorrow we'll be back, of course, with Coffee and Football at 8 a.m. And then we'll also have our Tuesday night live stream as well. And that'll be starting up at 7 p.m. So for Jeff and for Coach and for Matthew and for CJ and for all of our sponsors, thank you to SouthPointDodge.com, Flat Creek Estate Winery, FlatCreekEstate.com, and also thank you to Hard Grove Roofing, HardGroveRoofing.com. And until next time, hook 'em horns.